were you surprised by the toxicity and the aggression that you viewed on your television screen when you watched those hustings on Tuesday night?
In some respects, I was not surprised. This type of shouting, spitting, throwing eggs, abuse has been going on and building up. But this is probably, for most people, the first time they've really seen it in any large numbers and seen it being recorded. I used to attend these type of events in Perth myself back in the 80s and 90s, and it used to be just a ragbag of trots hurling abuse, and it didn't really make much difference. But it's quite clear there were about 1,000 people in Perth, and there didn't seem to be a single person there that didn't have something abusive to say. The placards that were on show, the banners, frankly, for most people, they'd be beyond the pale. And it's coming, this sort of experience is coming because of the language being used by senior nationalist politicians. And it's really, therefore, no surprise.
Yeah, and I mean, for those of us who have been involved in politics in places like Scotland and, in my case, Northern Ireland, we get used to catcalling, perhaps, on occasions. But it just seemed to me to be a different level of aggression, and particularly when I saw the attack on the BBC correspondent. I think he was a BBC correspondent, he was certainly a journalist.
Yes.
I thought that was just completely out of order, particularly when it was quite clearly going to be reported upon, but they didn't care.
Well, back in the 2014 referendum, this sort of thing did happen. For instance, when there was an interview with the BBC and Alex Salmond, and there was a reaction against the way Nick Robinson handled that, immediately there was calls for a demonstration, and a demonstration was had outside the BBC. When Jim Murphy, the Labour MP, was going around with his crate and standing on it and speaking in public, he was often abused. And many people can actually recount a number of examples about essentially what would be intimidation and bullying. It wasn't a pleasant experience. And what we're seeing now is the fact that as Nicola Sturgeon keeps leading nationalists to believe that they'll have a referendum only for her to fail to deliver it, they are getting more and more bad-tempered, I feel. And ultimately, I think there's going to be some serious assaults if they're not told to calm down, if they're not disciplined. We've already seen a Liberal Democrat councillor assaulted and the police took no action. And I think we're really looking for the police to step in, because it seems very odd to most normal people that you can be spat on. Now, spitting on someone I always thought was an assault. And we have police with cameras on their shoulders. We have CCTV. It was outside the concert hall. Don't tell me there's no CCTV there. It's a public space. Yet nothing was being done about it. And I think we really need the Scottish police to step in and actually bring some order to these demonstrations.
Well, yeah, and I mean, we've seen the police in various parts of the UK step in when people have said something online and they feel that there's a need to talk to them about that. But actually what you're speaking about is an actual assault through spitting. Yes. And it is an assault, I think it's fair to say. But do you believe, Brian, that the SNP has fuelled this rise in, if you like, aggression and toxicity in our politics? Because, I mean, civility seems to have gone out the window. Of course, you can have a political ideology, you can be a unionist, you can be a nationalist, but this sort of aggression seems to be rising again.
It is, and people might, for instance, point to Liz Truss and say, oh, but Liz Truss said Nicola Sturgeon was an attention seeker. Well, let me just say that actually that is part of the parley that goes on in politics, of people calling someone out for what they're saying, whether they're a hypocrite or not, whether they mean it. But when people criticise Liz Truss, they fail to recognise that previously, in the Scottish Parliament no less, Liz Truss had actually accused the Liberal Democrat leader of being a pathetic attention seeker. So my point is this: there is debate, and people troll each other. People try and get a reaction. But when it actually moves to intimidation, and that's what was going on the other night, then that is a different level. And the police, as I say, people are looking at them and they're seeing them doing calypso dancing, limbo dancing. They're dancing around at all these events where they're meant to be fitting in with the community. What about doing their job? What about stepping in and pulling these people out for breach of the peace? I can't understand why it's not happening.
Yeah, and just finally, Brian, as a former Conservative MSP yourself, who do you think in the current leadership contest would be best for the Union, best for Scotland?
Well, to me, the Union is not just about Scotland. It's, you'll be pleased to know, definitely about the whole of the UK. And in that regard, for me, I don't have a vote, but it comes down to trust. Because one has to ask, if Rishi Sunak was so keen to prevent Article 16 of the protocol being triggered, then I feel he cannot be trusted in the sense of negotiating any new protocol for trade across the Irish Sea. My feeling is he would capitulate. I feel he's no leverage because the EU know that he would give in. Whereas with Liz Truss, I think there is a prospect, at least, that she understands better the actions that need to be taken. She's negotiated with them, probably come away learning something from that. And I think she'll be therefore more robust. So I tend to side with her.